a few little technological glitches that have thrown a bit of a spanner in the works, so I'm pretty much just going to have to do it verbally, the entire thing. So I might cut a few minutes out of the time, which will be good for everyone. We can get on our way. But yeah, I'll just start by introducing it a little bit. We're probably all very familiar with it by now. A couple of weeks in, just finished practicum, so we should all have a pretty fair idea of what the principles of learning and teaching are. A great little quote to describe them is they are a set of principles that reflect on practice and support professional dialogue to strengthen pedagogical practices. It's a mouthful, but it's true. So pretty much what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through each of the principles and just try and break them down a little bit and make them a little bit easier to understand. It'd be so much better if I had my slideshow because I wouldn't look as an unprofessional constantly looking down at my paper, but surely you guys can forgive me for that. So firstly, principle number one, the learning environment is supportive and productive. Pretty straightforward sort of stuff. There's 4 little subcategories in that, and they are to build positive relationships through knowing and valuing each student. So that's obviously like taking a little bit of interest in your students, not only academically, but like in their social and personal lives outside, you know, asking them how their weekend was, getting a gauge of, you know, what their sort of social life is and developing relationships through that. Promoting a culture of value and respect for individuals and their communities. So that's, again, pretty straightforward. Yeah, modelling, they talk about, Killen particularly talks about modelling as a teacher to try and achieve those goals, and that obviously plays a pretty important part here. So pretty much just leading by example. If you're modelling and holding acceptance of values and perceptions high, then hopefully the students will see that and follow. Strategies to promote students' self-confidence and willingness to take risks with their learning. That's things like promoting and encouraging students to put their hand up and have a guess even if they're not confident, and really support students having a go no matter how left of centre or, you know, how far wrong the guess is. The important thing is that they're willing to put themselves out there and have a go and at least give themselves every chance to be right. 1.4 is to ensure each student experience success through structured support, the valuing of effort and recognition of their work. Again, pretty straightforward sort of stuff. Yeah, recognising and celebrating the achievements of all students is a big thing from Killen again, and that's pretty straightforward. That's sort of pretty much day one stuff. As you know, assessing, you need to take a positive approach all the time whilst being constructive. Try and steer away from that negative side of it. Yeah, we'll move on to the second principle, which is the learning environment promotes independence, interdependence and self-motivation. So we're talking about encouraging and supporting students to take responsibility for their learning. That's probably happening more and more with open plan learning, less supervision, giving students more chance to take responsibility for their learning. And they stress that modern teaching, we get the students to set goals, monitor their progress, and have those students provide evidence of success. So there's a sequence there that we can follow to ensure that students are developing that independence and taking responsibility for their learning. Using strategies that build skills and productive collaboration. So again, that open plan learning, trying to encourage group work as much as possible, and that's good because it builds those interpersonal skills that are really important, transferable skills that they take out into the workplace and into the rest of their lives. Quickly on to number 3, students' needs, backgrounds, perspectives and interests are reflected in the learning program. Yeah, so that entails using strategies that are flexible and responsive to the values, needs and interests of individual students. So yeah, promoting awareness and acknowledgement of things like gender and personal and religious differences. So it comes back to that acceptance that we're supposed to be modelling as teachers as well, and really applying that in our lessons and in our teaching. A range of strategies that support the different ways of thinking and learning. So we've done a lot about that this year. Should all be pretty sweet applying that into our teaching. A good one to touch on there is using contemporary strategies to impart that learning. So the use of media and things like that. I know on practicum I was bulk YouTube clips and students responded so much better to watching a YouTube clip and applying learning to that clip than just listening to me talk absolute dross up the front. Where was I? Build on students' prior experience, knowledge and skills. So identifying students' prior knowledge, I found again was something that was excellent, a great way to start and get a feel of your classroom and what learning needs to occur, what strategies that you can apply to ensure that learning does occur. And linking that prior knowledge to the new perspectives and new things that you want to teach them, obviously, is a big one there. Capitalising on students' experience of a technology-rich world, that's 3.4, so I've already touched on that. Utilising media and things like that. Trying to get a move on here, we'll punch on to number 4. Students are challenged and supported to develop deep levels of thinking and application. Obviously, you guys probably know knocking up assessment for practicum. Those goals that you have set need to be challenging. There's no point giving students tasks that they can easily, just accomplish and not take anything out of. Another thing that Killen suggests is extending key ideas over a few sessions rather than starting a new topic each lesson and always revisiting that knowledge is going to promote that deeper thinking. So students aren't learning one thing, finishing it, then starting another and completely pushing that knowledge out of their mind. It's always good to revisit and refresh learning. So promoting substantive discussion of ideas. This was a really interesting one when I was looking at it. Does anyone understand what I mean when I say substantive ideas? Any ideas? No, that's good. I'm happy to see a lot of heads shaking. That's great. So a substantive, when we're talking about substantive ideas, they're significant ideas, practices or issues that are relevant and meaningful to students and occur over a long enough period of time that you can really just explore them effectively. So a good example at the moment would be the Olympic Games coming up right now, pretty relevant to students, young, active phys ed students. I know I did a lot of things related to the Olympic Games on prac, and students responded really well to it. And like I said, it's obviously a few week period that goes over, so you're able to dissect it and explore it over an appropriate period of time. Quickly shoot on to slide 5. Assessment practices are an integral part of teaching and learning. How do you know if students are learning? Assessment. Simple as that. Things to remember is it's very important to use a variety of assessment. So things like open-ended questioning, checklists, projects, prac reports, oral presentations. Always good to get that good variety, good range, so students can experience those different ways. Quickly shoot on to number 6. Last one. Learning connects strongly with communities and practice beyond the classroom. So trying to get students out and involved in the community as much as possible. Again, touching on those interpersonal skills that are an important transferable skill in the future. Killen suggests using industry and contemporary technologies and everyday events as a context for learning. So again, any excuse you get to get the kids out of the classroom and experience the real world and relate that to learning, go for it. And developing capabilities with generic software and technology and things like that. So, like the students are all pretty much using the computer day maps and things like that. That's good, so they're familiar with that technology that they're likely to be using in the future. And my awesome activity that I was going to do was a little old school link up. I had each principle and a few little descriptions, and I was going to get you guys to come up and draw some lines on the interactive whiteboard, but we obviously can't do that. So I guess that pretty much wraps it up. Are there any questions that any of you guys have about any of that? Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for listening, and I hope you took a little bit out of that.